Damn one sure looked great at League Worlds, but you know what else looks good? Set 9 in Vanguard 0. What's up, y'all? Today we're going to be taking a look at the contents and doing a little set review for Set 9 in Vanguard 0, the first Break Right set and the beginning of the Link Joker story arc. And you know, now that you guys are going into this in Global, you know that JP gets Link Joker in 3 months, so you're going to have 3 sets, and then after that, it's going to be the release of the actual Link Joker clan. So kind of plan ahead, but this set introduces one of the decks that this set introduces stays good for, as I'm recording this, I mean it's the last day of the set 11 meta, so before we go into set 12, and Eradicators is still essentially the best deck for all the tournaments, for ranked in general, and so there's definitely going to be a good pickup for you guys as well. So let's just get into it and take a look at what is in set 9 here, and you know, what's gonna last for all the time until at least Link Joker. Alright, so before we go into the actual clans, the one thing I wanted to quickly show that Global I have seen is actually getting is this special Glory Maelstrom. So this one. So this Glory Maelstrom was introduced in JP as the extra gacha card you could pull only for the first 2 weeks of the set, and you can't craft it or anything or disenchant it or whatever, but it's basically like an extra promo they threw in. This was the promo art for the finals of the Zero Championship Summer, and yeah, they threw this in, and it kind of, you know, a lot of people got spooked by it in their gacha rolls. They haven't done this since, and they don't seem to be doing it again, but keep in mind that this will be in the gacha for the first 2 weeks. It's literally just the same Glory Maelstrom as the original one, you know, as not this one, but you know, this one. So keep in mind it's the exact same card, but you will potentially pull it, so keep that in mind. But after those 2 weeks end, in JP at least, that's when we started getting SP sparking. So ever since that set, we had this thing where in set 9 it was in the middle of the month, so in like 2 weeks past, but in set 10 and 11 and 12 now, we're having SP sparking for the very first, from the first day onwards for like 10 days or 9 days, we have SP sparking. And what SP sparking is that for every 100 packs you open, you can choose to trade for either 1 triple rare SP, or for every 30 packs you open, you can choose to trade for 1 double rare SP. So this is a nice way to both get cards that you normally wouldn't have gotten if there wasn't the sparking. It is SP and it is a lot of packs, but it's still extra cards that you wouldn't have otherwise, which helps to finish up your collections. And on top of that, if you have all the triple rares, you can exchange them for the double rare SPs and just kill them for materials to craft cards in the future. So I think it's a pretty good system. And so keep in mind that if you want to hold off a little bit from pulling and opening your packs, you can maybe do that until, you know, more or less the middle of the month. However, Global doesn't have this actually confirmed, so your only sort of word of confirmation is stuff we've had in JP. And so if it doesn't happen, I don't want to be like, oh, you know, I don't want to get blamed for this, basically. But it, you know, if they follow JP's pattern, that will happen, and you will get SP sparking. But if you want to just play with the cards now, then just go for it and go get it. But I definitely felt a little bit miffed when we got SP sparking in the middle of the month, and then for all the other sets we got it from the start of the month. So hopefully Global continues that. Again, this is not a confirmation. I'm not saying that this will happen in Global, but I'm just saying that that's what happened in JP, and you might want to just keep that in mind. So if you're not like super pressed to start playing the new decks immediately, because, you know, some of the decks are definitely like not, you know, some of the decks from set 8 are still amazing, like Dungaree and like, you know, basically almost everything, like Azel, etc. So the only real like super meta decks that come out of this set are essentially like Ethics, Blau, and Eradicator. So if you're not playing either of those, you can maybe wait and see if SP Sparking comes out. So anyway, that's enough for this Aquaforce page. Let's get into the new stuff. And so the new stuff, we're going to begin in order of, you know, sorting here, the official sorting, and let's take a look at Gold Paladin. So Gold Paladin's got their Limit Break or Break Right archetype, which is Liberators. So Liberators are Aichi's new main, and so there's a new starter, which is Wingle Liberator. Its skill is very simple. It's Forerunner and Rearguard Circle. When the boosted attack that he boosted a Liberator hits a Vanguard, you can put him into the soul to search your deck for a Blaster Blade Liberator. So this is really cool because this doesn't need Counterblast, doesn't need Soul Blast, doesn't need any kind of cost. It just goes into the soul to search for your grade 2. So you can actually boost a grade 1 Liberator, put him into the soul and search your grade 2 Blaster Blade Liberator if you didn't already have a grade 2 in hand, which is really nice. Otherwise, it's just good to search the Blaster Blade because he is a point and click retire. So definitely kind of like the go-to starter for Liberators, even though Liberators at the start aren't as amazing as some of the other archetypes. Then we have this Flower Gardener. She's a Forerunner, and you can put it into the soul to draw 1 and discard 1. So these types of starters aren't really played much, but now in JP with Link Joker coming out, they might. Then we have the Enido. He's also a Forerunner and Limit Break 4. When he boosts a Limit Break 4 possessing unit at the end of that battle, you may put him into the soul to draw a card. So these types of starters actually run sometimes, but not too commonly, but they are run, so keep that in mind. It's a nice little cycle, you get a soul out of it, and so it's not bad, but definitely it has to wait until turn 3, and golds do have quite a few nice starters, so the choice is pretty heavy, let's put it that way. Alright, then moving on, we have probably the best double rare for Liberator so far, which is the Josephus. Josephus is a Din Drain, but plus 1k power and Liberator restricted. So when placed from the deck on Rearguard Circle, if your Vanguard is a Liberator, you may Soul Blast 1 to draw 1. So literally a Din Drain, but Liberator named, and 7k booster, which is actually very nice. And so this card will be played in Liberators forever, whether it's Bluish Flames or, you know, Monarch Sanctuary Alfred or just, you know, base Liberators. It's always going to be there, so definitely want to pick these up. These are super important for the Liberator archetype, so just keep that in mind. Keep in mind that Bluish Flames, when they come out in Legion, are also Liberators, so that's an important pickup. Then, this set is where the new Perfect Guards start popping up, and you can exchange these with your regular Perfect Guard medals, so there's no, like, new type of PG medals or anything, or Sentinel medals they're called. So, you can exchange for these as well, but the difference between these new Perfect Guards and the old ones is that the old ones worked when you would, like, you know how they work, right? When your opponent would crit, and you would even go to 5, they would trigger. These ones, however, only trigger when you would actually go to 6. So if your opponent is if you're on 3 damage and your opponent is attacking you with their Vanguard that has a crit on it, normally the old PG would have triggered, but the new PGs, they'll let you go to 5. Now why do they let you go to 5? That's because this way you're not choked out of your limit break. You know how MLB would always like choke you out of your limit break and not give you the limit break? You just like swing Vanguard, get PG'd, and then pass. So that can't happen anymore because these new PGs prevent that from happening. And a lot of the break right decks actually prefer to run these new PGs, so they're probably going to be wanting to pick them up. And you can also play them in the old decks, like Azel for example too. You know, it doesn't have to be just Liberators, but this is a Liberator mark, so keep that in mind. Another amazing Liberator Grade 1 that will only get better with time is Bruno. Bruno says, when your other rearguard is placed from your deck, if your Vanguard is a Liberator, he gets plus 3k for that turn. So when, you know, as Liberators keep releasing into the future, there'll be more and more superior calling happening during your turn, and this Bruno is going to get bigger and bigger. So, of course, having a big scaling Grade 1 is always going to be great. So, moving on. We have Marin, which is the 10k attacker for Liberators. It's also a V coupon tournament reward from set 9 onwards. Then we have this Pomerugal Liberator. Almost want to gain 1k. Pretty trash, unfortunately. This is Falconeer. So when you boost the Limit Break 4 unit, gains 3k, so 9k booster, but generally not recommended. Like, all the good Gold Paladin decks right now, they already have pretty good Grade 1s to choose from. Leo is played sometimes. When you boost the Vanguard, if you have 4 more Liberator Rearguards, he boosts for 10k. So 10k boosters are sometimes used, but generally you don't see it too often, but I'm just saying that it can be seen. Then we have the Alfred Horse. So this one, when he boosts the new Alfred, the Gold Paladin Alfred, you can Soul Blast 1 to give it 5k, so it's an 11k booster. So if you want that kind of big power line, you can choose to play him, but generally he's not seen too often. Then, moving forward, we have the Liberators, of course, mascot. So Blaster Blade Liberator. When placed on Vanguard Rearguard Circle, if your Vanguard is a Liberator, you can count +2 to retire any of the opponent's Rearguards. So no more front row restrictions. Neither Blaster Blade nor Blaster Dark Revenger have restrictions to retiring front or back row. They retire anything for count +2. So this card is of course very good. It is also, I'm not sure if it's a tournament, I think it's the tournament reward, sorry, the rank reward in Global already now as well, starting with November 1st. So you can pick him up if you don't pull him. As you can see, I grinded a little bit, got myself 3, and so yeah, this is a very nice card to just work with, and it's overall just nice because even if the skill isn't that great, there's a lot of cards that will come out that will need Blaster Blade Liberator. Like there's going to be a Barco Liberator that needs to be boosting Blaster Blade Liberator, so you definitely want to pick them up. Don't skip out on it, because even though the effect might not be super like overwhelmingly amazing, it's still really, really good. So keep that in mind. It might be not that great as an effect, but it's good for the clan itself. Let's just put it that way. So then we have Eskrad, which is Vivian's version in Liberators. So when he attacks, and when the attack hits a Vanguard, if you have a Liberator Vanguard, so there's a restriction, get +1 and call the top card of your deck. So it's Vivian, but a Liberator. So this card, it is used, but it definitely feels like it's falling off at times. So kind of, I wouldn't say it's a super big priority target. If you're crafting triples, if you don't manage to get the rank rewards, definitely I would look at Blaster Blade Liberator more so, and there's still more triple rares coming in the grade 3 slots. You have the 12k attacker in Pharaon. He's also a tournament reward, so if you don't pull him, you can exchange him with your V coupons, which is pretty good. Then, I like this guy a lot. This is the Linet. So Linet says, when his attack hits a Vanguard, count +1, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, add a grade 3 or higher from among them to your hand. So this helps you set up your break rides, because break rides work by putting grade 3 over grade 3. And so basically, this helps you just keep chaining break rides. And I personally quite like it, just for that simple reason, and actually play it over the S-Crad myself. 10k vanilla for Liberators, and then we have the Geraint, in Japanese is Gerainto, but when your other rearguard is placed, if you have a Liberator Vanguard, he gets +5k until end of turn. So this is not once per turn, this is just like Bruno, but instead of getting 3k, he gains 5. Oh, sorry, no, he gains 3k too, my bad. I think my vision just blurred for a second, but yeah, so he gains 3k. It's literally Bruno's skill, but on a grade 2. It's played in Garmor, or it should be played in Garmor once that comes out in JP. But I've seen some lists use him, some lists don't. It kind of depends. And then we have the Zoigle Liberator. So during your turn, if you have 4 more rearguards, gains 3k, simple 11k attacker. And then last grade 2 is this dude who is just on attack on +1, gain 4k, nothing too special. Then we get into the grade 3. So this is where, you know, all the action is. So basically, the triple rare you really want to be gunning for and aiming for to craft is the Gancelot, Liberator Gancelot. So, Limerick 4, this is what break rides are. If you don't know yet what a break ride is a Limb Break 4 ability on a grade 3, which says, when ridden on, so when you ride a grade 3 on the break ride unit, you give that new Vanguard plus 10k power, and then there's a bunch of effects. So Gancelot's effects are that after giving that 10k, you also give 3 of your rear guards plus 5k power. This sounds pretty nice, but keep in mind that if your opponent attacks your intercepts and you didn't set up a back row, there's nothing to give power to. And then, if your Vanguard is a Liberator, so if you break road a Liberator, then you can search your deck a Blaster Blade Liberator and add it to your hand. If you don't have any Blaster Blade Liberators in your deck anymore, you can add it from your drop zone instead. So if you searched all of them, if you drew into all of them, or damage checked all of them, and you have one in the drop zone, you can just add it from your drop instead. It's still a +1, giving you an intercept in your deck. So like I said, you're noticing already how there's a lot of skills, or so far there's not a lot, but there are skills that revolve around having Blaster Blade Liberator. So make sure that you either try to pull for him, or just grind a bit of ranked. I went a little bit ham, you know, trying to get those rank reward Blaster Blade Liberators myself, so make sure to push a little bit just to get them in case you don't pull enough. Because they're definitely, you know, Gancelot is pretty important too. I wish I had a 4th one, because he's going to get a cross-ride in the future, but, you know, they're both quite important. And then the second skill that most break rides share is, when he attacks the Vanguard, gains plus 3k for that battle. So every break card has that plus 3k for a certain condition. Some of them are for attacking the Vanguard, some of them are for like having more rear guards than your opponent, or stuff like that. Alright then, so what kind of units do you break ride? Well, there's a new Alfred, and he's a double rare. So the Liberator Alfred says, Limerick 4, when he attacks for that battle, for each of your Liberator rearguards, he gains plus 2k. So very reminiscent of the old Alfred, so that's very, very nice. And then his second skill is Vanguard Rearguard Circle. So in the main phase, you may Catalyst 2, look at the top 4 cards of your deck, and call a Liberator from among them. So pretty cool ability as well. Basically, being able to call him and use that second skill to fill up your board is very, very nice. It is a little bit expensive with Calmas too, because there are definitely cheaper ways to call cards, but it's still pretty nice because you fill up the board and it fills up his second skill, and he can be boosted, which the old Alfred could not. So he's not actually played that much. Liberators often tend to just play both break rides and this dude, which we'll take a look at in a second, but I mean, Liberator Alfred is still pretty good, but definitely feels like it's not as good as it could have been. Let's just put it that way. Then we have the other break ride, which is Bleoberis. So this is from a Fighters collection, I think from the very first ever Fighters collection. And so this card, you know, people didn't expect it to come, but it came from this very start for Liberators, and it's really, really good. So Bleoberis says, when you break ride over him, you make almost 1, and then for that turn your Vanguard gains plus 10k power, and you can call the top 2 cards of your deck. So almost 1 to call 2, versus, for example, Alfred's Calmas 2 to call 1. Of course, it's not the same. You know, this is a break ride ability. That one is like a Vanguard Rearguard Circle main phase, not even Limber Break ability. So they're quite different, but you can see like how much more value this gives in terms of like 1 Calmas equals 2 cards. It's very, very good. This break ride is overall very much preferred. Gancelot is more of the break ride to like spread power after you've already like set up a good turn. It's like a good kill turn break, right? And Bleoburst is more of like the first break you want to go to, filling up your board, maybe like top decking interceptors and stuff like that. It's definitely very nice. And then his skill is also when he attacks the Vanguard, gains plus 3k for that battle. So what a lot of Liberators players do, it's kind of like looping break, right? So they just go like, you know, Bleoburst, Ganslot, Ganslot into Bleoburst, Ganslot into Bleoburst, just like looping, and just like, you know, doing a bunch of break rides. The other card that they often ride though is the Freed. So Freed used to be a promo in the TCG, and that's why we don't really remember him, but he has a really nice ability. Limit Break 4, when placed on Vanguard circles, when you ride him, when you're ready at 4 damage, count almost 1, call the top 2 cards of your deck. So this works really well with Gansalot, because Gansalot and Freed happen at the same time. So of course, as always, you can choose which one to resolve first. So you can choose to resolve Freed first, Freed calls 2 cards, and then Gansalot resolves, powers them up. So that's also a very nice thing. Or you can break right over Bleoburst, which will then call 4 cards for 2 counterlots, which is also really, really nice. So that's definitely very powerful. And then we have some commons and rares. So here we have the on attack, counterlots 1 plus 3k, he's Liberator. And then we have the, when on Vanguard, Limit Break 4, when he attacks the Vanguard, gain 5k. And then on Rearguard Circle, when he attacks the Vanguard, gain 2k. So again, nothing too special. And then finally, this is the, when your Grade 3 Vanguard is placed, gain 10k. So every clan gets one of these, it's nothing too special. But yeah, so unfortunately, Liberators, even though the cards are quite good as like a base for Liberators, they're definitely not enough to keep up with the meta right now. Like the deck feels pretty decent, but it definitely didn't feel like it was like breaking any charts or like doing anything crazy. And, you know, just like superior calling, distributing a bit of power, having a bit of retire, but with no real countercharge outside of Trip, which is a non-Liberator, it felt a little bit underwhelming. And so we're definitely looking forward into the new support for Liberators that will come over the next few months. You know, I think Liberators get like 3 more waves of support, because there's Garmor, and then there's Gansalot Zenith, and then there's going to be Monarch Sanctuary Alfred. So it's going to be exciting to see how Liberators evolves over time, because it definitely feels like it needs more power as things are. So if you're a big Liberator fan, don't let me stop you from playing it. It's definitely very cool. But if you're low on like resources, or you don't have like any gold Paladin resources and you were planning to build it, I would maybe pick up I would say the most important cards to pick up are definitely like Ganslot. This will become really good in the future. Bleoburst, it's a good break ride, but I'm not sure if you'll have space for it in the future. And then looking at grade 2s, you definitely want the Blaster Blade Liberators. Those will be great in the future. This, I'm not sure. This is a tournament reward, so you can pick it up from there. And then for grade 1s, all I can say is Josephus and Bruno. Perfect. Like, so good. Those cards are definitely really good. So the only triple rares you need, you need Gansalot, and you do need Blaster Blade Liberator, but you can grind rank for those. But for doubles, make sure you definitely want to pick up Josephus at all costs, I would say. He's just fantastic, like absolutely amazing card, and will be used for years to come. So I really mean that. I really do mean that. So that wraps it up for golds. Now let's take a look at Genesis. So Genesis is the new clan coming into the game now. So Genesis is Misaki's new main in ever since the Break Ride era. So she drops OTT, you know, she switches off and she's done with OTT for life. Well, not really, not for life indeed. But Genesis is kind of like, you know, what she chooses to main now. And Genesis in JP has already had 2 waves of support, but of course this will be just the first one, and I'll try my best not to mix them up. So lots of starters. We have the Tamayori Hime, when she boosts and the attack is a Vanguard, can almost 2 to Soul Charge 3. Pretty pricey. I don't see many people using her. Then we have the Artemis starter. So it's the typical Artemis. When you ride the grade 1, look at the top 7 for the grade 2 or the 3. If you don't find it, call her out. If you ride a non-grade 1 Artemis, then call her out. So nothing too special there. This is the one that you put into the soul to draw 1, drop 1. And then this is the one that when you boost a Limb Break unit, you can put into the soul to draw 1. And then this is the grade 3 searcher. Count as 1, put in the soul. Look at the top 5 cards for grade 3. So those are the starters that you have. Most people played the Artemis Right Chain. That's kind of how it was at the start. And then you get a very amazing starter later on in set 10. So the month after that, if you're interested in... No, sorry, in set 11. My bad. Set 11. Then we have some amazing staples. So we have Melissa. This will be really definitely used in Genesis for a long time. Melissa has... So the way that Genesis works is that it soul charges a lot and then it soul blasts it all out for its effects. Now, because you're soul blasting so much, you have effects that work off of being soul blasted. So Melissa is one of them. She says, during your turn, when this card is sent to your drop zone from your soul, so essentially soul blasted, you can count plus 1 and call it to a rearguard circle and it gains 3k. So it becomes a 10k booster that gets called out in the middle of the battle phase. I mean, you can swing with rearguards first, and then overcall them with Melissa and one other card. So that definitely helps a lot. Then, of course, new PGs, so Genesis never gets the old PGs, at least not yet. So it's only the new PGs that work when you would go to 6. This is a grade 1 of the Artemis right chain, so works like almost every other right chain. When you write a grade 2 that is not the Artemis over her, you look at the top 7 to try to find that grade 2 Artemis and write it, which works really well actually for Artemis because you get an extra soul out of that. So miswriting the grade 2 isn't always bad. Then we have a copy of the starter. When the boosted attack hits a Vanguard, Calmas 2 to Soul Charge 3. Again, Soul Charge, Calmas 2 is pretty damn expensive, so we have this card instead. When the boosted attack hits a Vanguard, Soul Charge 1. Doesn't cost anything, of course it's less soul charging, but it is something. We also have Kumin, on place, Vanguard Rearguard Circle, Soul Charge 1, again, more soul charging. 8k Vanillas, of course, coming in. And then we have, I think this is the self, this is when a boosted Limerick unit gains 3k. So again, pretty standard stuff so far. And finally we have the self-damager, so that also comes in here. And then I think this grade 1 comes in later on. So then, this is the grade 2 I mentioned, so this is Chamomile. She has the exact same skill as Melissa. When soul blasted, during your turn, Calmas 1, call her to Rearguard Circle, and she gains 3k. So if you call her Melissa and a Chamomile in the same column, that's a 22k column from 2 Cattle Blasts just from Soul Blasting. So that's why I'm saying those, like, the Cattle Blasting for Soul Charges isn't too good, because you'd rather be using the Cattle Blast for cards like Melissa and Chamomile, so keep that in mind as well. This is a grade 2 of the Artemis right chain. So her unique skill is when she hits on Vanguard Circle, your opponent's Vanguard, you can soul charge 2. However, if you have the grade 1 Artemis in your soul, she soul charges 4 total. So that's really cool because you basically get a huge soul charge just off of hitting. So this card is really, really nice, and that's why people play the Artemis right chain basically. So yeah, pretty cool. This is the Callaway, so she is, when she hits anything, Calmas 2 to draw a card. Then, this is a very important grade 2 for Genesis, which is the Sahohime. When she hits the opponent's Vanguard, when she attacks, you can Calmas 1 and Soul Charge 3. So earlier you saw Calmas 2 to Soul Charge 3, this is Calmas 1 to Soul Charge 3. So it's much more worth it. You can play it early game, you can play it later. It has to hit the Vanguard, so keep that in mind, but Vanguard Rearguard Circle, so you can even write it if you want to in non-Artemis builds. So really, really nice grade 2, still played to this day. And then we have the 10k Vanilla. Then we have the Self-Damager on grade 2, so again, something every clan has. And finally, the during your turn, if you have a Limerick 4 unit, 11k Attacker, so this is the Paprika. So that's grade 2, these are upcoming ones. And finally grade 3, so we have this little page here to take a look at. And so speaking of grade 3s, before we look at Artemis, we have one more, which is the Iwanagahime. So Iwanagahime is a pretty unique card. So she's a grade 3, Limerick 4, Vanguard Circle. You may Soul Blast 6, so like I said, the costs are pretty steep. You can retire all of your front row rear guards that your opponent has. So this is Soul Blast 6 to pop 2 front rows, basically get rid of intercept and just swing into the face 3 times. And then her second skill is Soul Blast 3, she gains 5k. So you'll notice that this is not a battle phase Soul Blast, and that way we can't use Chamomile and Melissa to call them out in the battle phase and make multiple attacks, so this is just 3 whacks to the face. However, the break ride for Genesis gives battle phase Soul Blast, therefore you're able to combine popping the entire front row and also Soul Blasting in the battle phase, therefore calling new columns of units to attack with, which means you can get up to like 5 attacks to the face, which is pretty damn nuts. Of course, you know, it's probably going to be just 4 because of, you know, scaling and damage, but still, you know, if your opponent's at 5 and you use her in conjunction with Himiko, which is the break ride, that's going to be very deadly. So looking at the next one, we have Artemis. So she has quite a few skills. Of course, she's a ride chain, so if the grade 2 Artemis is in the soul, she is at 11k base. And then Limerick 4, when she attacks the Vanguard, so battle phase, Soul Blast 3, draw 2, and put 1 card from your hand into your soul. For that battle, gain 5k. So this is a really nice skill because it's pretty cheap. Soul Blast 3 is pretty cheap for Genesis, and it also lets you put stuff from your hand into your soul. Now, why is that important? You can put your stuff like the Chamomile, which is the grade 2 that when Soul Blasted calls itself out, into the soul, even if you didn't soul charge it. So if you drew it and you haven't called it yet as an interceptor, you can just put it into the soul, and then, for example, use her skill to put into the soul, and then use Himiko's break ride skill to Soul Blast her out and get that extra attack. So that's also very, very nice, and the extra 5k is also appreciated. The extra draw, of course, as well. So it wouldn't be a Misaki type of deck if it didn't have some kind of draw power in it. Then her second skill is also draw power, Persona Blast, so just discard a copy of herself, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, add one of them to your hand, the rest go to the bottom of your deck in a random order. So you get to even stack the bottom of your deck. This is a new skill that was not in TCG, but it kind of reminisces of Tsukiyomi, especially if you open all 4 Artemises for some ungodly reason. So yeah, Artemis is pretty good. Definitely carries the Wave 1 Genesis quite a bit until they get their Wave 2 bosses, which you can kind of see over here, but we're not going to get into that today. And so I've been talking a lot about her. Himiko, the Break Ride for Genesis, is very, very good. When you Break Ride for that turn, your Vanguard gets plus 10k power, and then you choose 2 rear guards and give them 5k power. So this is the first part, and then you also give your Vanguard the following skill. When the Vanguard attacks, Soul Blast 3, draw 2, put 1 into the soul. So it's basically the same as Artemis' skill, just minus that 5k extra power. So of course you can give that skill to, as I said, the Iwa Nagahime to get both a front row retire, as well as a battle phase call from Soul Blasting a Chamomile or a Melissa. So this is a pretty nice effect. The extra 5k also helps to push if your opponent's at low damage and you want to get over those defensive triggers, but keep in mind that you have to set up your board in advance, so make sure you call down some stuff in the back row that won't get attacked and you can still power up, so that's something to keep in mind. Her second skill, this is where the on attack Break Ride skills get a bit unique. Instead of getting 2k power or 3k power on attack, she says when she attacks the Vanguard, Soul Charge 1, for that battle gain 1k. So this is much better for Genesis than just on attack gain 3k, so it's definitely very appreciated. And then our last high rarity card here is going to be the Mizuha. So if you watched Your Name, then this is a familiar name. But her skill is Limb Break 4. When she attacks the Vanguard, Soul Blast 3. And for that battle, she gains 5k and a crit. So that's pretty nice. Battle phase Soul Blast. She's only 10k base though. But extra 5k, extra crit. And her second skill says when she attacks the Vanguard for that battle, gain 3k. So that's 8k. If you boost with a grade 1 vanilla, that's going to be 26. Of course, you're not really playing grade 1 vanilla, so you're looking more at 25, but you can also boost with a starter and it's going to be essentially just swinging for 23, which is pretty good too, and that extra crit is definitely quite nice. I actually ran this because as you can see I only have one Iwa Nagahime, so I ran like 4 Artemis, 4 Himiko, 4 of this. I had 1 SP, so I killed it, and 1 Iwa Nagahime at the start. So that's basically the Genesis sort of boss units, but we have some side cards as well. So this dude is the 12k attacker when he attacks the Vanguard. She is the on Vanguard circle, she gets 5k when she attacks the Vanguard and Limit Break. On Rearguard circle gets 2k when she attacks on Rearguard to the Vanguard. And then here we have the when boosted gain 3k. And I think that's actually it for the Genesis Wave 1 cards. So Genesis Wave 1 wasn't like super meta dominant, and also Artemis, keep in mind this Artemis will be a ranked reward, I think in 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. It should be the mid-November ranked reward for global, but Artemis will be pretty good. Like, she will be a little bit, I mean, I have a deck and fight where I get very frustrated, but luckily when the new bosses for Genesis came out, they definitely revived my hope for playing Genesis. But yeah, it's quite fun, it's pretty cool, it has a lot of cool combos. Just be careful with the timer as well, because there's a lot of like micro decisions you can take. And so for now, the Ride Chain is probably the best build, but you know, you can definitely experiment and do as you wish. Now before we take a look at Narukami, which is basically the best of the best of the best in this set, I want to take a look at Novas real quick, because they did get some support and it was very important for Ethics Blau. So of course, if you have your Blau stuff from before, this is when it comes back. Alright, so some new stuff that they got. 2 new starters, Lion Heat, oh sorry, not Lion Heat, Riot Horn. Riot Horn is pretty interesting. He does not really play right now, but he will be when more Ethics Buster support comes out, which is going to be set 12, so tomorrow for us in JP. So when the unit in the same column as him stands, and if it's a Beast Deity, then you can also stand him. So when you stand your front row Beast Deity that's in front of him in the rearguard circle, he also stands. Just, you know, keep in mind, it does say unit, so it doesn't say rearguard, so you can put this behind your Vanguard and it will restand if you have a restanding Vanguard, but generally you put this behind rearguard so that you can still reboost them after your Vanguard attacks, because usually that's how, like, you go like rearguard, Vanguard, and your Vanguard is usually big enough anyway because of the break ride. So yeah, then the other one is the when it boosts the Limit Break 4 unit, put in the Soul Draw 1. So nothing too special, but for now the main start of this run is actually this, the Mirayo, but we'll see how it changes when we go into Ethics Buster Extreme and Ethics Buster Reverse. Then looking at more new stuff, let's take a look here. So looking at grade 1s, so they have the new PG. We already spoke about the PGs, so those only work when you would actually go to 6, even if your Vanguard attacking, your opponent's Vanguard attacking with a crit. So those are of course very good. Then we have more Beast Deities. So this is the one that basically says when the attack that it boosted or the attack where it attacked hit, you can, if you have a Beast Deity Vanguard, you can discard 1 and draw 1. So it helps to filter a little bit, and it's quite nice for that reason. It has Beast Deity in its name, so that's also very important. Then we have the Energy Charger, very good card. On place, Rearguard Circle Soul Blast to draw a card. So this is, of course, basically the Rising Phoenix of Novas. This will be played for a long time. So definitely want to pick those up. It's just a rare. And then this is the, when it boosts the Limerick 4 unit, gains 3k. And that's all the grade 1s that we have. So of course, Energy Charger, that's a rare you really want to pick up. The rest, I mean, PGs, of course, but this one, for example, isn't played yet. We're going to see if it comes back once more Beast Deities come out. But for now, it doesn't really see too much play. Then, looking at the new grade 2s, we have the Beast Deity 12k attacker. So when you have a Beast Deity Vanguard, this isn't run in Blau Ethics because Blau is not a Beast Deity, but once Ethics Buster comes out, this will probably be quite important. Then 10k Vanillas for Beast Deities, so they got all the archetype support. And finally, during your turn, if you have Limerick 4 unit, then he gets 3k type attacker. And then for grade 3s, we have, of course, not that much in terms of new stuff. Ethics Buster becomes a rank reward, just ended actually, but here's a regular one. So this is the Nova Grappler Break Ride that suddenly brings back Blaus into the stratosphere. So Limerick 4, when you ride on top of it, for that turn your Vanguard gains plus 10k power and the following ability. When the new Vanguard attacks, you can stand your front row rear guards. So at first you might be thinking, oh, just stand 2, I mean, it's like, what, 2 extra attacks? That's kind of cool, I can go rear guard, Vanguard, rear guard, into Vanguard, rear guard, into Vanguard. But this is much more, because with Blau, with Stern Blau Kluger, he basically says when the attack hits, Kalmas 2, discard 1, or discard 2, right? Discard 2, and restand your Vanguard. So this Break Ride skill is not once per turn, so if you have a restanding Vanguard, you can keep standing that front row too. And if you remember, we have cards like Yamato no Drake and Golden Anglet that gain 4k every time they're stood in the battle phase. So you can keep swinging, standing, standing into infinity. So I did a lot of coverage for this deck. It won the Summer Championships in a super hype way. So if you want, there is a VOD, there is the tournament upload of the Japanese Summer Championship Finals that me and Kai commentated. You can skip to the finals and watch how Ethics Blau decimates the competition. It was super hype, you know, Spikes and Ethics in the finals was absolutely beautiful, so you definitely want to check that out. This was really cool, just absolutely amazing. And yeah, he becomes a rank reward later on. And finally we have the on Vanguard 15k attacker, on Rearguard 12k attacker. So that's it for Novas. Cards you gotta have, I would say Ethics 100%, but keep in mind he does become a rank reward and looks very sexy. So you might want to hold off for that if you are not planning to play Ethics Blau and you want to just play Ethics Reverse or Ethics Extreme, then you should wait. Then 12k attackers will definitely be played, I would say, in Ethics Reverse or Extreme. And 10k Vanillas are rare, so those should be pretty easy to pick up. And then here, I'd say PGs and 100% Energy Charger. Even if you're waiting for Risers in Legion, pick up Energy Chargers at the very least. Like that is definitely a must in my opinion. So yeah, that's Novas, and now let's finally take a look at the final clan, which is a lot of people's favorite, Narukami. So Narukami got the very famous Eradicators, and with them one of the best starters in the game, which is Linchu. So Eradicator Linchu, Forerunner, when he boosts a Eradicator and the attack hits a Vanguard, you may catalyze 1 and put this unit into the soul to choose any of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. So it's not restricted to grade 0s, grade 1s anymore. You can retire anything. So if your opponent plays like a grade 2 in the back row or something too early, pop it, goodbye, done, shot. So Linchu, even if you don't use his skill that much, or if you mostly use his skill to like snipe your opponent's conroe or something, his presence is pressure. His presence gives pressure to the opponent, and just him being on the field means that your opponent probably won't commit too many early game pieces. Keep in mind that you can also, for example, freeze your opponent's intercept with like a Ryan or something, and then use Linchu to pop it, because you didn't have to attack into the intercept, you can just pop it. So that's also very nice, and Linchu's presence is just so much pressure, and it's a really amazing starter. Then Descendant has a starter too, so when your Vanguard is Zuitan, you can put him and your Hisen into the soul to search your deck for a Dragonic Descendant and ride it and draw 1. So it's literally the Azel starter, but for Dragonic Descendant. So if you want to run that, you can run it, but Linchu of course is way better, as I've been hyping up. So then we have the put him into the soul, draw 1, drop 1 starter. We have the when boosting a Limerick 4 unit, put him into the soul, draw 1 starter. And then this is the I think this one actually comes in a bit later. This is put him into the soul, give another unit plus 3k. I think that one doesn't come in yet. Or maybe it does. Maybe it does. I think it does actually. So yeah, that's the starters. Linchu definitely the best one from those. But moving forward, there we go. Eradicator Perfect Guard. So of course this one is the new type. So the one that when you would go to 6 would protect you, not when you would go to 5. We have Eradicator 10k attackers. Course, we have Eradicator when placed. If your opponent has 2 or less rear guards, discard 1, draw 1. So like every archetype gets this kind of like discard 1, draw 1 card, and Custer is the Eradicator variant, which is on place, which is quite nice. Doesn't have to hit or even go into the battle phase. Then we have good old Shuki. Shuki is really good. When your opponent's rearguard is retired by your card's effect, gain 3k. This is on once per turn, by the way, and yes, you are popping a lot of your opponent's rearguards in this deck. So this has been a staple in Eradicators ever since launch, even with the new support that Eradicators have been getting. This is definitely an amazing grade 1, and it's only a common, so definitely no excuse not to pick it up. This is the Dragonic Descendant booster. When it boosts Dragonic Descendant, you can Soul Blast 1, gain 5k, so 11k booster, and also a component of the kind of like Azel chain that it has with the starter, so keep that in mind. It's like basically the Gareth of the chain. Then we have the Limerick 4. When it boosts a Limerick 4 unit, gain 3k, so 9k booster. And then this is Gauntlet Buster booster, so when it boosts a Gauntlet Buster, Soul Blast 1, gain 5k, so same as the Descendant one. And then finally, I think this is the last card that we have, Vanguard Circle or Front Row Rearguard Circle. During your turn, if your opponent has 2 or less rearguards, gain 3k. So I think this card released here, but it's not really played, so it's pretty easily forgettable. So if it released later, apologies. Then, Eradicator Grade 2s. What do we have? We have a 12k attacker. As expected, it is played. Then we have an Eradicator clone of this Death Scythe, kind of. So this is the Saucer Cannon Wyvern. So this actually got a remake in Standard recently. Vanguard Rearguard Circle when placed, Calmas 2. Choose one of your opponent's front row rear guards. So it has to be front row now. The Death Scythe can target back row. It has to be front row rear guards and retire it. So basically, it's intercept clear, and it's definitely played a lot because you have Gauntlet Buster that triggers off of stuff being retired. So of course that's quite good. Then we have the Rasetsunyo. That's, I think, her name. She's basically the on-hit Calmas 2 draw 1, so Maiden of Libra clone. This is played. I only have one, but this is definitely played in some variants of Eradicators. Zuitan, very important card. If you've seen any of these cards and thought I could pass on it, if you're playing Eradicators, you absolutely cannot pass on Zuitan. Zuitan is super essential. His skill is Vanguard Rearguard Circle when its attack hits a Vanguard. If your Vanguard is an Eradicator, Soul Charge 1, Counter Charge 1. So Counter Charging is already amazing, but the Soul Charging, people at first went, I mean, what are you using that Soul for until Sweep Command comes out? But we have Rising Phoenix, and we've seen plenty of Eradicator lists that run multiples of Rising Phoenix to just turn all of that excess Soul that you get from Zuitan into extra cards. So that's definitely very cool, and Zuitan is an amazing card. 10k vanilla for Eradicators. And then this dude, the Rochichin, so Vanguard Rearguard Circle, when your opponent's rearguard is retired by your card's effect, he gains 5k. So he also scales up a lot. I remember this card comes back when Vowing Saber Reverse comes out, because then you can lock the circle behind him, and he just goes pop, 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 powers up for every retire, and that's definitely a nice card that might come back in the future. But for now, you know, it's kind of sitting there. This is another Eraser that is played sometimes. Vanguard Rearguard Circle, when your opponent's rearguard is retired by your card's effect, gain 3k. So it's kind of similar, but instead of being an 8k base that gains 5, this is a 9k base that gains 3. So, you know, you gotta do the math to see how well that adds up in value. Then this is on place, give another unit plus 2k, nothing too amazing. This is a during your turn, if your opponent has 2 or less rearguards, gain 3k, nothing too amazing. And that's actually it for the grade 2s for Eradicators. So in terms of must-have so far, if you're still following, PG's must-have, 10k attacker must-have. This is played in some variants, so I would say not super must, but kind of must. This is definite must-have. Skippable, 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 skippable. Then grade 2s, we have pretty much must-have, must-have, kind of have, but not super important. Definitely can go without it, and it will drop off. Must-have, kind of gotta have. Skippable, 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 skippable. Yeah, that's it for grade 2s. Then let's get into the grade 3 Eradicators. So we're gonna, I want to keep the grade 3s for a little bit. Sorry, the triple rares for a little bit. Let's get the commons and rares first. So this is the on Vanguard gains 5, on rearguard gains 2. Then this is the Mega Blast for it's not even Eradicator, it's just a Mega Blast. So at the beginning of your main phase, Soul Charge 1 for that turn, gain 2k. And then Vanguard Circle, Soul Blast 6, Calmas 4. And for each of your rear guards, you retire one of your opponents. So if you have a full field, pop it all. So for Mega Blast, I mean, it does what it needs to do, I guess. It's better than Vortex. And then we have Shion, so he's on attack Calmas 1, gain 3k, but he is an Eradicator. And then we have 2 break rides in here. So one of them is a triple, the other one is a double. This one is from Fighters Collection. This is the Electric Shaper Dragon. So his skill is, when you break ride over him, your Vanguard gains plus 10k, and the following ability. When your opponent's front row rear guard is retired by your card's effect, you also retire the unit behind that unit in the same column as well. So you basically get a 2-for-1. So when you use something like, I don't know, the Saucer Wyvern, which pops the front row, this break ride says also pop the back row. So that's really nice, and it's not too cohesive right now. You could technically use this with Dungaree, and I know some people talk, like, they come up to me like, you said there's Dungaree support in the future. This is kind of Dungaree support in a way, but it's a very long process to get to it, because you either have to skip you have to choose between cross-riding the old Dungaree, which is usually better, or riding up with this, and generally just playing the regular Dungaree game plan is probably going to be better for you. But I mean, this card definitely does work with Dungaree. You get to pop the front row and he pops the back row as well. So you can choose to play it if you want to, but this is kind of seen as like a tech for a lot of Eradicator lists. It kind of pops off when Steve comes out, but that's about it. The other break ride that is definitely run as a 4 of, and will continue to be run as a 4 of because it gets a cross ride later on, is the Vowing Sword Dragon. Vowing Sword is very simple. Limit Break 4 when you break ride over him. For that turn, your Vanguard gains plus 10k, and you retire one of your opponent's front or rear guards. That's it. That's all it does, but that's enough, to be honest. That's all it needs to do, because it's already very powerful. And so his other skill is when he attacks the Vanguard, gains 3k. But I mean, yeah, that's a really good ability, just because you get to pop something, and then your other grade 3 see that pop and can work even more efficiently. And of course, the one grade 3 that works most efficiently is Gauntlet Buster. Gauntlet Buster's Limit Break says, Limit Break 4, when your opponent's rear guard is retired by your card's ability for that turn, this unit gains plus 3k plus 1 crit. This is not once per turn. So you break ride, get that 3k and a crit. Then you use something like an Electric Shaper. Sorry, not Electric Shaper, the grade 2 Saucer Wyvern, pop something in the front row, gain another 3k and a crit. And then you can use the second skill, Counterblast 2, randomly retire one of your opponent's rear guards, prioritizing the back row. That's another 3k and a crit. So you can choose to like one-shot your opponent when they're at 3 or even at 2 if you're really high rolled. But yeah, so this is an amazing boss card. I don't know if it's going to get crept out by a Vowing Saber reverse. We're going to find that out very soon. But at the time of recording this, I sadly cannot tell you, so you'll just have to pay attention to my future content. But this card is definitely like the face of Eradicators, at least in the early stages. It really does carry itself really, really well. Having that crit bonus just helps to, like, not only does it help to kill your opponent early, what you can also do is, you don't have to aim to kill them early. What you can do is just push them to 5, and then use your other grade 3, which you haven't covered yet, Dragonic Descendant, to finish them off. Dragonic Descendant is a very famous Narukami unit, and so this was kind of Kai's boss unit for the early Link Joker arc. So, he has 2 skills. First one is Limit Break 4, Vanguard Circle once per turn. When he attacks, for that battle, he gains the following ability. So even if you heal out, if you're on 4 damage, and you healed on attack, this skill still sticks. So, the skill he gives himself is, at the end of the battle, if the attack did not hit, you may Counterblast 1, discard 2 Eradicators from your hand, and stand this unit, draw 2 cards, and for that turn, gain 1 crit. So his second skill also helps to power up. It's Counterblast 2 to gain 5k, but that first skill though, basically if you manage to push your opponent to 5, you get to attack, pop a PG, it doesn't hit, so you Counterblast 1, discard 2, restand with a crit. So then you can go in for that finishing blow. Alternatively, what you can do is if your opponent gives you Limit Break early, you can basically swing with a rear guard to hit. Your opponent checks the damage, so they go up to 16, swing with Descendant without boosting, so it hits for 11, give all the trigger powers to the booster behind it, you didn't hit, so you Counterblast 1, discard 2, you draw 2, so you make up that discard, and you gain a crit. So you can now attack again to your opponent who pushed you to 4, and push them to even higher damage, or potentially win the game there. So it's a really great ability. Descendant is an insanely strong card. I've covered this deck a fair bit and I play it. It's probably my most played deck so far in the Break Ride era, so it definitely is really, really strong and I highly recommend picking it up. So, like I said, this is the deck that has lasted basically the entirety of the Break Ride, like the first 3 Break Ride sets. So, Link Joker era in 0 is split up into 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. So the first 3 sets. Then, so that's like the early sets. Then you have 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. That's the reverse we're expecting it to be the reverse arc. And then you have 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, which are probably like the anti-reverse stuff. So like Gancelot Zenith, Minerva, Blouse, Nouvelle, that's kind of what I'm expecting to go in there. I made a predictions video way back of how I think the units will be coming out in the Breakwright era. But yeah, so this is pretty interesting. And I mean, this deck just, it just carries itself. It's super, super good. It gets a bit of support cards later on, but that's like a separate build of its own. But honestly, it's just really, really good. And it's getting future support now in JP tomorrow. So it'll be interesting to see how the deck evolves. But on that note, that's basically it for the set review. It's been a pretty long one. There's a lot to cover. It's a very impactful set and like the beginning of a new mechanic in the game too. And I believe that Spike should also be getting their clan event in Global soon, as well as the summer event. So I covered those events from JP already, so if you want to check those out, make sure you do that as well. And finally, we're opening a lot of packs for set 12 in JP tomorrow, so if you want to come watch that, make sure to hit up my Twitch channel, drop a follow. I'll be live at around 8:30 a.m. CET, Central European Time, so if you want to join the action and see the craziness, not only will we be opening a lot of packs, we're also going to be testing the Link Joker meta. So if you want to see how impactful Link Joker really is on the meta, you can come check us out over there on Twitch. But on that note, that's going to be it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.